You're locked on to LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jyn Yates. You're on Jyneration Nation. And I'm so excited because today I have Jeff McAllister, drummer, educator, extraordinaire, with me right here in the studio. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate the invite.
Dude, I was really excited because you're one of my favorite drummers. So it's LRS is now like drummer central on this show.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I love it because I get to feature my favorite local and national drummers, and you've done so many things. I mean, how long have you been playing drums?
54 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
I started when I was 11.
Wow, and you're now teaching. You teach out of Melowen.
I do.
Yeah, and how long have you been teaching now?
Oh, since the early 80s, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Man, you can teach me a lot of stuff then.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, I always love to sit behind you when you're playing like your gigs. There's been a couple times like at the blues shows, down in Germantown.
Yep.
Where I got to kind of hang behind you and watch you play. And you play traditional, right?
I do.
Yeah, I love that.
I can't get any power matched.
That's what Jeff Jarbo said too. He's like, I just can't get the power I need.
Yeah. It's weird. That's just the way, I guess, when I was 11, when I started, I played on a snare drum for a year and convinced my folks that I was going to stick with it. And then the next Christmas, I got a drum set. My dad was in the Air Force, and we were living in Japan at the time. And the first time I picked up sticks, it was all traditional. Even though I was watching and listening to people like Charlie and Ringo, who are match players, it just came out that way. Why? I have no idea.
Yeah, well, it's awesome because you rarely see people play that traditional style anymore.
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems to me that the big dogs, the guys that I really look up to, like Steve Gadd and Steve Smith, they do both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we talked a little bit about with a couple of the other drummers about how sometimes you do want to change your grip depending on what style of music you're playing.
Yep, agree.
Yeah, and there are more than just two. A lot of people don't know that. They think there's just the match and the traditional, but you also have the French grip and
German grip.
Yeah, the German grip. Yeah.
Quadra grip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I even saw a book the other day that had archaic grip, and it was like this with the big old sticks, which made me laugh.
2 twigs.
Yeah, basically 2 huge sticks,
Great.
Yeah. So, Jeff, you've done pretty much everything. You've toured all over the country. I mean, I want to talk to you about all of that. You brought us in some great tracks that we're going to spin here in a minute. Not for sure what that was. Sometimes things just go crazy here in the studio. You never know.
It happens in old buildings,
I know, yeah. And we're in kind of a creepy building, too, the old Guild Theater. Before the show, I took Jeff up and showed him the old Guild Theater.
Oh,
and
it's great.
Yeah, it's great. We're trying to get people to, renovate it because it would be awesome for shows here.
Yeah.
And according to Marvin Maxwell, everybody and their brother in the 60s and 70s was playing here.
By the looks of the place, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been hip to LRS?
Oh, back in the days, back in the 70s, that was the only rock station to listen to.
Yeah.
And like I was mentioning before, late at night, we got into some serious deep tracks like Genesis and Tull and things you basically wouldn't hear during the day.
Yeah. Speaking of Genesis, are you a fan of Phil Collins?
No, of course.
Yeah, me too.
Brand X.
Yeah. He's just still amazing. And he's still out there doing his thing. I heard he was going to retire, but I'm not for sure if he's actually retired or not. But I think his son's playing drums now.
I don't know. I think he's back on tour. Just a strange little story. When he was out with Genesis, the second drummer was Chester Thompson.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for Peter Frampton.
No kidding.
And I got there about an hour early down in Nashville. And one of the guys that managed the studio said, "Oh, so you auditioning for Frampton today, huh?" I went, "Uh-huh." He said, "Well, Chester Thompson was in and he didn't get the gig."
Oh, no.
And I went, oh. Uh-oh.
Speaking of auditioning, I love this story. I have to share it with everybody. But the only audition I ever lost was to you. I don't know if you know this.
When was that?
I wanted to play Hedwig at Actors Theater, and I auditioned for it, and they were like, "You didn't get the gig, man." And I was all sad because I love that musical.
Yeah.
And I said, "Who got the gig?" And they said, "Jeff McAllister." And I was like, "Oh, it makes sense."
I tell you, that show was so much fun.
Oh, I know. It's a great rock musical.
It really is.
It's one of my all-time favorites.
I've done about 6 or 7 shows at Actors back when they would actually hire local musicians to do live playing.
Yeah.
And that I also did Hedwig And we did a tribute to Frank Sinatra called My Way.
Cool.
And both those shows were those shows you woke up the next morning going, oh, I get to do that again.
Yeah.
This is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
You know, that's what I love about theater is that you actually don't do one show. You usually do like a whole 2 or 3 week run of the show.
Oh, yeah.
So once you get it under your belt, it's just like, you know, a machine.
Yep.
You go in and you're playing the same stuff every night.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and you try to do it the same way, or as close as possible too, because I was working with an actor actually in that Frank Sinatra show that if you varied or if you did anything improv, it threw him off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, I've noticed several actors that I've worked with in the past. They're very peculiar about that.
They are.
Yeah, the Guys and Girlfriend were the exact same way.
Yeah, I remember that because I actually played the drums when you got that gig.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Isn't that cool? I think you were in the audition room, weren't you?
I was playing for. You guys were looking for a bass player, and I was the drummer until you came in, and then they were looking for a drummer, and boom, you got it,
with
right.
Julie Wolfe, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
man,
yes.
I love her.
And Scott Anthony playing keys. He was the music director.
And Jimmy Brown was on bass.
Was Jimmy?
I think Jimmy Brown was on bass that day.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that. Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy's awesome.
Jimmy Brown is oh boy, as a bass player, he's like
Butter.
riding in the backseat of a big car.
Yeah.
He is just Mr. Groove.
I agree.
Plus, you get really cool choreography as far as a package.
Yeah, and I love his smile.
Oh, he's great.
He's one of those guys that just will smile the entire. You can tell it just lights him up to play music.
Yeah. He just recently, last Friday he sat in with the Monarchs. He subbed for our regular bass player, Dusty Miller, at River Stage.
Cool. And if our listeners don't know who you are, you've been drumming with the Monarchs for how many years?
14.
Wow, and you guys play everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no clubs.
No clubs. I know. I love that.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's that's a rarity around here.
It is.
It is, but I would love to get to that point where, because I don't want to play bars the rest of my life. I mean.
No, at my age, playing to 3 in the morning just doesn't appeal to me at all.
Right.
I need way too many naps.
I know, same. I love to sleep. I love my sleep. In fact, my mom would always call me Rip Van Winkle when I was a kid.
Very good.
I just love to sleep. And you know what? You'll love this story. My dad was a drummer. So
I knew that. You got the Ludwigs from him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a vintage collector, so he's got like Rogers and Slingerland, but he mostly has vintage Ludwig 70s and back.
Nice.
Yeah, and I call it the drumatorium because he has a whole living room full of nothing but drums, and he even has a 3,000-year-old gong that hung in the Indonesian Shaolin Buddhist monk temples.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that.
That's
he's a
impressive.
real vintage collector. But my dad got to the point where he set up the drum room was the next door to my bedroom. So if I wouldn't wake up to go to school,
there's one way to get you going.
he would get in the next room and just, start playing drums. Now that's something you don't want to hear to wake you up in the morning.
Yeah.
But it'll wake you up.
I'm with you. What my mom used to do was get a 45, a song that I didn't particularly care for, and take the arm off of it where it would just repeat itself over and over and over again until I had to get out of bed to go change it.
Yeah.
And that got me up.
Isn't that funny? How is your hearing these days? Because you've been playing for so long. Do you wear ear protection when you play?
Religiously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
And my hearing is terrible. I remember I was 15, and my dad, what I mentioned, was in the Air Force. We were stationed down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I was at a party. Having the time of my life, and at that time I was into Keith Moon, so I was playing Fast and Furious and just more is more back in those days.
Yeah.
And we were doing a version of Jimi Hendrix's Third Stone from the Sun, a very long version of it, and I had a Fender Twin right in back of my head. And like I said, I was 15. I woke up the next day and I went, "Wow, my ears are still ringing. They haven't stopped."
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really preach to my students. Man, you've got to watch your hearing. It's an occupational hazard.
Right, it is.
I wear them when I cut grass. Anything loud, I stick them in. They're just trying to retain what I still have left.
Yeah.
And it's awful because, I know I'll never have a day in my life where I can go to a lake and hear the birds instead of this constant ringing in my ears.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that needs to be addressed.
And when you're young, you don't pay attention to that.
No.
And I don't know how any of you guys that played through the 70s lived through with hearing.
Yeah, I know. I remember I was on the road back in the disco days. We were somewhere down south, like, Montgomery, Alabama. And I remember going to a music store and asking for earplugs, and they laughed at me.
Really?
Like, what? Earplugs? Get out of here. You know, and
They wouldn't laugh at you today.
no, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
They'd probably go, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know.
I think somewhere in my 20s, I became friends with an audiologist, and she ended up blowing the silicone in my ears and fitting my ears for, certain amount of decibel, earplugs. And I continue to wear those to this day.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, it's to the point where if I'm around, if I play without earplugs, which I very seldom do, the high end just kills me.
Yeah.
It's noise exhaustion.
Yeah.
It wears me out.
Well, I was on tour with Kelly Ritchie there for a while. And
Yeah, I
then
know. You would know.
Yeah, she's very loud. In fact, I remember one time she was like, I want you to play as loud as you can play to me. And so I did. And then she was like, well, maybe not that loud.
I remember there was this guy, there was a very similar story. There was this after hours club. I was subbing for a buddy of mine named Jim Whitaker, who's a tremendous drummer. And at this after hours club called Al Henderson's, which was on Oak Street. And nice guys. Freddie Helm was in the band, Gene Stewart playing guitar, and I'd never met Al, and he came up to me before the gig and went, now it's very important in this band to have a strong left hand, a strong 2 and 4. I went, I agree. Okay, yeah, no problem. Came up to me about 3 minutes later. He said, Jeff, listen, man, it's really important for the sound of the band to lay in and give me a heavy 2 and 4 in the snare drum, okay? I said, yeah, I got it. I agree completely. We got on stage. He was about ready to cap the song off, and he said, Jeff, remember, strong 2 and 4. And we did Jewel Aiken's song, Birds and Bees. Let me tell you about the birds. And after the song was over, he looked over, he went, hey, lighten up on the left hand, okay? True story.
After he told you three times.
3 times it played as hard as you can. Hey, lighten up on the left hand.
You know that 2 and 4, that backbeat, right? The backbeat. I try to teach the kids all about that. Do you know any of the history behind when that came into music?
Well, they turned the 2 and 4, and like if you were playing bebop or swing, the 2 and 4 was meant for dance.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it.
Yeah. And I always heard that like Elvis demanded it. He would demand like DJ Fontana. He would really want that 2 and 4 backbeat there.
Well, DJ had it. He man some of the greasiest grooves ever.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I'm so happy to have you in the studio. You've got some great stories, and I can't wait to hear all about them. And we've got all kinds of tracks to spin of yours and everything else. We're going to talk about you touring with Leonard Skinner and everybody else you toured with, and you've done some amazing things. So I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
You're locked into LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jyn Yates. You're on Jyneration Nation. I am joined by drummer extraordinaire Jeff McAllister. Yeah, Jeff, are you from Louisville?
I've been here since '74. I'm an Air Force brat.
Okay, cool. That explains all the traveling around, other than drumming.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So you were constantly moving around?
Constantly.
Yeah. Are you a big fan of Zeppelin?
It's mandatory. Yeah.
I know. It is mandatory for a drummer to be influenced. We were just talking about how I think every drummer has to go through the Zeppelin phase.
Absolutely.
And learn most of those tracks.
Try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was teaching a kid yesterday, and I asked him what's his favorite bands on tape, and he said Hall & Oates. And then he said Led Zeppelin. And I was like, kid, you're smart. You know what I mean? And he's like, can we learn Zeppelin? He's just starting out. And I was like, give it a few years, Give it some time, man.
Yeah.
But he knew like every track,
Well, that's impressive. That's nice to see.
It always
these days.
is, man. Yeah. It cracks me up. These kids, I just love them. I love teaching them because they're so interesting. And you've been teaching for so long. I mean, I bet you have some great stories. You pretty much taught everywhere around town, and also on your own and everything else.
I've been teaching a whole lot. You've got to the main key with teaching is you got to like kids. You got to get along with them.
Right.
If you're not a kid guy, you're out of luck.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a pretty big dose of patience.
Yeah.
And a great deal of sense of humor.
Yes.
And you've got to realize that 0.00.1% of your students are going to turn out to be players.
Right.
They're just doing it for fun, or a convenient spot in between soccer and swimming.
Yeah.
Depending on their busy parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that you have to realize, because when you first start teaching, you want everybody to be a drummer. You got to go home and practice 3 hours a day.
Right.
You got to. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
You're just banging your head on the wall. small.
But when you get that one kid, like,
it makes the whole
yeah,
week worth it.
It does. And yesterday, the same kid I'm talking about that loved Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
he told me, I said, how often do you practice? Because he's only been taking lessons for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I've seen like him jump. And I said, you must be practicing a lot. And he said 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And because he wants to, not because he's forced to.
Right. You know, I think the lucky ones, the ones that turn out, they end up, without them knowing it, finding the drumming is therapeutic.
Yeah.
Like they'll go downstairs to practice for 15 minutes and then look at their watch. They've been there an hour, 15 minutes. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
That means they're into it. And they wander off. They forget their troubles. And they're into it. I think that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
Another thing I find a little frustrating about teaching, too, is the kids that are really into video games.
Yeah.
They're impatient. They want to learn the drums within 3 weeks, just like they do a video game. They want to be on stage at Madison Square Garden and no longer than 4 weeks.
Right.
Or, I'm tired of this. This isn't working.
Right.
You know as well as I do. When you decide to become a musician, you're signing a contract that says, I'm going to be a student for the rest of my life.
Correct.
You are never, ever going to be in a situation where you know everything.
Correct.
It's always a learning curve.
It is, yeah.
And some kids don't have the patience for that, and which is fine. That's all good. It's just part of the deal, I think.
I always try to teach them about muscle memory via video games, because I'm like, you ever play a video game and you can't beat a boss? And they're like, yeah, because they can all, they all play video games.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I did too. I mean, I grew up in the Nintendo, Atari world, and that was just a thing. But yeah, I'm always like, what do you do if you can't beat that boss? And they're like, well, I go back and I keep trying it until. And I was like, well, you know what your thumbs are doing?
Well, no,
They're getting
see,
that muscle memory down.
That's a good analogy. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to teach about muscle memory because a lot of people don't understand that. But I feel like almost every instrument is muscle memory.
Absolutely.
It's just a repetitive motion, doing it over and over and over again. And then once you get that, you can fly through stuff.
It's in your catalog.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's in your arsenal.
Yeah, and there's always something, like you said, man, even if you're a teacher, you're still a student of music for life.
For life. Absolutely.
There's always a song that can teach you something new, or a theater piece that can teach you something new.
Or a drummer you haven't heard of.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Or a music you haven't familiarized yourself with.
Right.
It's endless. It's endless.
That's why I always say the music is bigger than the musician, It's like, every piece of music I play, it's bigger than me. I've just got to learn it, you know? Yeah.
Right.
And keep practicing. I think the key is to keep playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think if you're lucky, it becomes therapeutic, and if you're not playing, a part of you is gone.
Right. Yeah. Stuart Copeland, I think, says, musicians do what they do because when we don't do it, we go crazy.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
Yeah.
Man, and music has taken me through a journey, and I'm sure you can relate. I mean, there have been times where, music has been the happiest thing in my life. There's times where it's been the worst thing in my life, where it's like I wanted to quit, and, and then I always come back to it.
Well, it's that feeling you get on like back when we were playing clubs all the time, on a crowded Friday night. The dance floor could not be more packed, and you hit that magic 8 measures where everything just goes, oh my gosh, listen to this.
Yeah.
That's what you keep coming back for.
Yeah, exactly.
The magic.
Yeah, the magic of it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Music is so interesting. I think everybody can relate to music in some way. It is the universal language.
No doubt.
Yeah. I mean, we can disagree on politics all we want, but usually we can find a band that we both like.
Usually,
and we can talk about that. I mean, not always, but generally we can, you know. And I've found it just a way to relate. And these kids today blow my mind because they do have YouTube. They can go look at Buddy Rich.
Well, yeah.
When I was growing up, I couldn't do that unless he was on TV.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who he was except for my dad telling me,
Yeah, back when I was growing up, I mean, you saw bands on the Sullivan Show. You saw bands on Hullabaloo or Shindig, and that was just on the weekends. Now it's, you've got instructional videos on YouTube 24/7.
Yep.
You've got YouTube 24/7.
Yep.
And you've got all these DVDs, and I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
These darn kids nowadays, they've got so much information coming at.
Oh,
it's
man.
so much easier to get better now.
Yeah.
Because you got a website like Drummer World.
Right.
Where you could sit there for 5 hours and go from drummer to drummer going, oh my God, listen to this guy, and stealing ideas and combining them.
Yeah. How important do you think it is, though, for people to have an actual physical mentor? that teaches them kind of along the way as they're learning to play?
Well, I could only speak from experience. My first teacher was Johnny Roy.
Wow, he's the godfather. I've
He
got to get
is
him in.
the godfather. You need to get him
Every
in.
drummer I've had in
Yeah.
studied under him.
Marvin included.
Marvin included.
Jeff Jarbo.
Yep. Dave Williams was in too. He
Of
studied
course.
under him.
Yeah, I started with John when I was in 8th grade. And there used to be this thing called the Crusade King and Queen at Crusade time at WHAS. They still have it, but they don't have a competition for the King and Queen. And I went to the WHAS studio to audition, and in the house band there was John Roy playing on this really small set of Rogers. And it was just, I think it was Mel Owen on sax, and I think it was just a trio, maybe a quartet. And I was so impressed because they were doing a song and somebody started talking to John, and he was still playing and talking. He was like, wow, this guy's amazing. Look at this.
Yeah.
And so I started with him at Durloff's when it was down on 4th Street, and he's the one that taught me how to read. And
Was Durloff's his?
No.
Okay.
No.
But he did start the first drum company here, right?
He was, I think, certainly their major teacher. He used to teach 2 students at a time.
Wow.
He would go from room to room. He was that popular.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, he must have been because I didn't move here until '99.
Yeah.
So I didn't get hip. You know, I went straight to Mom's Music and networked through Mom's and Marvin.
Right.
And Max and all those cats.
Yep.
But everybody I talk to is like, you've got to meet this Roy cat.
No,
you
no,
know?
he's the godfather.
Yeah, John Roy, right?
John Roy. Yeah.
And he's 90, I hear.
Yes, he is.
And still playing.
And still playing.
That's wild.
Yeah, the Ovation Orchestra with his beautiful wife, Junie Wooney, as we call her, June Roy. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And it's old school big band.
I love that big band stuff. So what did he teach you?
Well, to read, count out loud, same
That's
things
good.
I'm teaching now.
Yeah.
You know, and I was, like I said, I was in 8th grade, and I looked up to this guy like he was the coolest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
I just thought, man, this guy, just so cool.
Yeah.
And he's a very, very close friend to me, and he's helped me through them hard times, and I love him dearly, and I've got tremendous respect for this man.
Yeah, it seems like everybody does. He must be a magical dude.
He is the dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I call him the Godfather because he's literally taught everybody in this city almost.
Yeah, it's amazing. Guys, John Hayes took from him. Guys would travel on buses, you know, every Saturday to come in from out of town to study with him. He was quite the guy.
Yeah, gosh.
Still a very, very, very fine player.
Yeah, and 90. That just blows my mind. He reminds me of like the male version of Viola Smith because she's 106 and still playing.
Right.
And she credits drumming for her longevity.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember once, we were living in Louisville. My dad was in Thailand for a year by himself during the Vietnam era, and that's when I started taking lessons from John. And we were in the Haskell Harbook. And he just introduced me to 16th notes. And I would think all week, I got this. Yeah, no problem. And so I'd practice on my mom's dashboard while she drove me downtown to the lesson.
Yeah.
Thinking, okay, I got this. And I started playing, and about 2 measures into it, John stopped me, and he looked me in the eye, and he went, when are you going to stop wasting my time?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and my stomach hit the floor.
I bet. I would have probably started crying.
Oh, I almost did, I'm sure. You know, just like, oh, God. He, you know, I thought I was pulling the wool over his eyes, but he nailed me.
Yeah.
You know, it took him about a measure and a half. He said, no, stop, you know. So it's like, whoa. So I got pretty serious after that.
Yeah. Man, I've had some pretty scary teachers in my day.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, almost made you want to quit. But,
well,
but they made you better, really.
He made me sit up and pay attention.
Yeah.
And the next week, I mean, I practiced like hell the next week. I mean, I just did so much practice, and he came in and went much better, and that was a payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was all worth it.
You know, I used to play on my mom's dashboard, too.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can relate. My mom still gripes at me for beating the crap out of her.
I don't know how they put up with that. I don't know how they put up with that.
I don't know either. My mom, I was lucky with my mom because she loved drummers, and she was always telling me to go practice, and she loved to hear me up there banging around, you know. And she loved that both me and my sister were in marching band and all that stuff. And because we started with the Adair County Marching Band, which is a really awesome award-winning band here that's won state championships, you know, since my father was in. So I got a lot of my chops from him, and studying. You know, we were doing jazz pieces most of the time because my instructor Tim Allen was huge into jazz, progressive jazz, and so he would, write out a lot of the Blue Devils, a lot of that DCI line, stuff. And I got to play pit, so I was on set and timpani and marimbas and all that stuff. And talking about teachers that scare you to death, he didn't want me to play drums because I was a girl, technically, and all these guys were playing. And I had been playing for a while, but he wanted me to start on clarinet, and I was so mad at him.
I don't blame you.
I didn't want to play clarinet. I was like, I want to play drums, but I settled and ended up playing clarinet, and I thank him now for that, but back then I hated him for that.
Yeah.
But something about that one moment, lit a fire in me. And I'd go home and practice all the time, And
there you go.
And I got to read melody lines, playing clarinet,
sharps
stuff like
and
that.
Flats.
Learning my skills, all that good
which
stuff.
I haven't. Yeah, that's probably one reason I played drums because I didn't want to mess with that.
Right.
Didn't want to do it.
Well, and then later on, I forget how many years later, but I was sitting in the band room and I was playing on the drum set, and he walked in and he kind of looked at me and he was like. Called me in and then said, how about you play drum set in the pit line?
Wow.
And then he eventually let me play drums after he saw me playing.
Cool.
And the whole time I was already in bands, I was opening for the Kentucky Headhunters. I got to open up for Tim McGraw when I was really young.
Cool.
It was a
great.
It was a big gig. It was right before he dropped his big hits and became a big star. He had signed on to play the Adair County Fair.
Yep.
And so I got to open up for him, so that was a big to-do,
Cool. Very nice.
And Mr. Allen was there, and he saw that. It was a pretty cool experience. Did you ever get to do it like marching band or anything like that?
I did a year back at Durrett High School, which is the is it Mayo? Yeah, it's Mayo High School on Preston now. Yeah. And we weren't all that great. I left. They became state champions. Figures. They start taking it real serious. It's amazing how the drumline business has become such a gigantic deal now.
Oh yeah, and most of those cats like Gad and all them,
they were drumline guys.
Yeah, they talk about how drumline is. They credit that with learning some major chops.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, because a lot of people probably don't know, but you were on tour with Leonard Skinner for a while, right?
Yep, for a year.
And how was that?
Interesting.
Okay. Give me some details. What was interesting about it?
Well, I met him. I met him the first time before I was with them. I played with Hank Jr. for 3 years.
And how was Hank Jr., man? That's a cool gig to have.
Every night a new adventure with Hank.
Yeah. Was that out of Nashville?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's still based there, I think.
Yeah, he's got several places, but he lives in Paris, Tennessee. And what I would do, I just drive down to Nashville because he's pretty much a weekend warrior. Well, no, I take that back. When I joined him, we would go out for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. And I drive down to Nashville, get on the bus, and then repeat the process once the tour was over. The great thing about that whole experience, the camaraderie with Hank's band was tremendous.
Cool.
Because you never knew which Hank was going to show up.
Uh-oh.
And you knew...
Was he drinking back then?
Not to a great extent.
Okay.
I saw him completely hammered on stage maybe twice in the 5 years I was with him. You knew what we were going to open up with. You knew what you're going to close with. Mm-hmm. In between then is anybody's game.
How was that?
That kept you on your toes.
I bet.
We used to call it being in the trenches, and that's why I think the band was so close. I was playing with a band here in the '80s called the Mighty Water Kings. Mm-hmm. It's a great blues band, and that's where I met Tony Bowles, and the late great Jimmy Gardner. Yeah. And I got to know Tony. He and I got really tight. He made the move to Nashville. Well, he left the Water Kings to join Henry Lee Summer. Then
cool.
made the move to Nashville and happened to sit in with Hank's band one night in a bar. And Hank happened to say, "Give me a slide player," and Tony plays slide, so he got the gig.
Cool.
And then when they were looking for a drummer, Tony put my name in the hat, and I went down and auditioned and got the gig.
That's super rad. I was going to tell you when I toured with Beverly McClellan, she never made a set list.
Oh, boy.
Ever.
Yeah.
And she was like, she just loved to mess with me. Because it was just the two of us,
Yeah.
you know, and she was like, oh, you can play anything, you know, just...
Yeah, I've seen footage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen footage of that.
She would write a set list and just write set list and then autograph her name and put a big question mark, you know.
Yeah.
And then she would hand it out at the end of the set.
Right.
And then sometimes she would just look at me and be like, well, the show's about to start. Go out and start it with the drum solo. And I'd be like, okay.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
but talk about keeping you on your toes.
Right.
Most artists would be terrified to do that.
Yep.
You know?
That's true.
But you never knew. It was always magic with her. I mean, anytime she picked up an instrument and, you know, she got to tour with Steve Vai, B.B. King, and some pretty major players. And when we met, it was just a magical spark. But she hated to make a set list.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, and most artists are very anal about their set list.
Yeah,
you know?
Hank kind of came and went with that. And I was with him the first time for 3 years, back when one summer we probably did 60 shows. And then he started working less and less. And so rumor had it, we were in Seattle, and rumor had it that he was going to take 1998 off. This is, you know, the summer of 1997. We didn't know anything about it until on stage the last night he went, "Good night, see you in 1999." And we went, well, looks like we have a year off.
Yeah.
And then I got the call from Skinner. We would open for them, and then they would open for us sometimes on the one of the tours I was with Hank. So they got to hear me play. They didn't know me as a person. They just heard me play. And so I got the call from Skinner and went down and got the gig with them.
That's super
Did
rad.
70 shows with them, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they canned me. We didn't get along real well.
Okay.
I was a little too sarcastic, I think.
Yeah.
And the whole Southern rock genre it's a different animal. It really is.
Yeah. You mean playing wise or just the personalities
Personalities,
involved?
yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
One day they loved you, the next you weren't in their favor.
Right.
And
were they drinking back then too?
No.
Okay.
No. They were. They didn't drink. But you were more than welcome to smoke your body weight and weed
Right.
on a daily basis,
Right.
which I didn't, but
Right.
but some of them did. So Hank was going to tour, but they already got another drummer, so here I was sitting local again. And then, so like I said, I toured with Hank for 3 years. And then
career.
7 years later, the phone rings. I was getting ready to go to a big band gig at the Brown, and the phone rings, and it's Hank's road manager. And he says, our drummer's dad's had a stroke, but we got this big festival in Austin tomorrow. Can you sub for him? And I went, well, I guess I have to, don't I? And so Tony, my best buddy, bear with me here. It's a little bit of a long story.
Yeah, go for it.
My best buddy, Tony, who's still with him, his wife was 2 weeks overdue with their first child. And he didn't want to be away from home any longer than he had to. So the plan was I was going to drive to Nashville, hook up with Tony. We were going to go to the airport, fly to Paris, Tennessee, pick up Hank, and go to Austin, Texas for this show, which we did. And so we get off the plane. Hank gets off. It's a private plane. Get off the plane. Hank gets on, and I say, "Hey, Hank, how you doing?" He went, "Hey, man." And that's all he said to me for the 2-hour flight. And so I was like, oh, wow. So it's me and Hank and Tony on this plane. We land in Austin. We go to a private hangar. We get in a stretch limo. We get a police escort to the festival site. It turns out to be a biker festival with 70,000 people. And here I was playing with a band I haven't played with in 7 years. And so Hank usually did 75, 90-minute show. That night he did 2.5 hours. And I was going, stop, please make them stop, please make them stop.
My hands are about to fall off.
Yeah, and so Tony flew back with Hank, and I wanted to hang with the band, so I took the bus back from Austin to Nashville so I could party with them and catch up with them. And while on the flight back, Hank went to Tony, "You know, man, I was a little worried about that drummer at first, but he knew my stuff." And Tony said, "Hank, he toured with us for 3 years." And Hank said, "He did? Where was I?" He didn't remember me after 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. That's impressive.
And he wasn't drinking then?
No.
Well, maybe it's on something else.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
or
know.
maybe his memory is just that shoddy.
Who knows? But I always thought that to be I've gotten miles out of that story.
Oh yeah, that's a great story. Jeff, I love having you in the studio. You've just got the coolest things to tell us. I am going to play some Leonard Skinner though, whether you get along with him or not.
Come on, go for it. Absolutely.
I love me some Skinner, man. You're logged on to LRS102.com. The Walrus. I am Jyn Yates. It's Jyneration Nation. Stick around. Here's some Leonard Skinner, Simple Man. And I'm in the studio with Jeff McAllister, drummer extraordinaire. Man, you've just done literally everything. Every style. Is there a style you haven't played?
I'm not a real good jazz player. I like to, one day feel better about myself regarding that. But I was raised on rock.
Yeah, I hear you. Me too. Well, and it's funny. I think most drummers are like, even myself, I'm not that great of a jazz player. No. I think most drummers are just like, I don't know, jazz. I mean, but I'm a huge Tony Williams fan. He's one of my
goodness.
Man,
yes.
I was talking with Jeff Jarbo about him, and he's one of those guys. When I go back and I listen to that anniversary record that he put out,
yes.
I mean, I can't even find the one. I'm like, I count for a living.
Well, the problem I had was we were stationed in Germany.
Yeah.
And I was into Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes and things like that. And one day I woke up, I went, well, I think I'm going to get into jazz. And so I went to the BX there and I got a cassette of Bitch's Brew, Miles Davis.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so foreign and strange to me, I thought both sides of the cassette were playing at the same time. So what I should have done is gone back to Louis Armstrong, Fats Waller, basic blues, Dixieland jazz, and taking one step at a time. Because when you say I'm going to get into jazz and start listening to that type of Miles Davis fusion thing, it's like not understanding basic math and getting into trigonometry.
Right, exactly.
You're not going to have a clue.
Right.
And I did, and it scared me to death.
Yes.
And I mean, Tony Williams, Cindy Blackman.
Oh, I know. Cindy Blackman, who's married to Santana now.
Yeah.
I mean, dang.
Yeah, he said, I love drummers so much I married one.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
The first time I heard some serious jazz playing was Steve Gadd playing with Chick Corea.
Oh yeah, Steve Gadd's one of my faves.
Oh yeah, and he was doing this thing called Samba Song, and I didn't realize that this was the same drummer that did 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, which is Jeff Jarbo's ultimate favorite track. But
yeah, as a drummer, you have to know that track.
You have to,
and you have to learn it open-handed, which I love because Steve Gadd is a right-hand player, but he's like, I'm just going to play it left-handed.
Yeah,
just
I never would have figured that out unless I didn't see that up-close video of him doing it. I went, oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you see him explain it, it makes way more sense. He's like, it sounds way cooler when you go over here on the hat with the left hand instead of the crossover right.
Right. Oh yeah. And I had a chance to meet him. He was such a humble, down-to-earth sweetheart of a guy. And it's amazing how we could sit there and play with Chick Corea and do all these amazing jazz things, then turn around and absolutely burn with Eric Clapton and James Taylor.
Exactly. Yeah, but Tony Williams, man, not to go back to him, but he's just one of those drummers for me that is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I'm like, what is he doing?
He was just a freak.
Yeah, he was. He's a freak in nature, man.
I mean, and he used to, hassle Miles Davis about, hey, how come you don't practice anymore? And I mean, he was always on Miles. And Miles said when Tony joined the band, when he was 17, it was just like, oh my God, who's it? This kid's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
Because he would just learn in leaps and bounds. And I guess that would be easy to do if you're playing with somebody like Miles Davis.
Right.
But yeah, Tony was one of a kind. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, he's one of my all-time favorites. So you brought us in some more tracks. We're gonna listen to some Hal Bruce.
Yeah,
here.
this is a complete right turn or left turn here. Hal is from Nova Scotia. He's a singer-songwriter, great guy, and I've done several shows with him at Abbey Road on the River over the last several years. And we did a show together called Concert for Rachel, and he was doing an album, and he was kind enough to ask me to provide the drums for it. And we recorded this at Nick Stevens' place, the downtown recording on 4th Street. And this is called I'll Be On My Way.
All right. You're locked on to LRS102.com, The Walrus.
Now I'm on my own. I guess I don't belong this town. country. The Walrus. LRS102.com. The Walrus.
So we just spun some Beatles, and I know Ringo was a huge influence on you, right?
Oh yeah. He's
Yeah.
the reason I'm playing drums along with 70 other million people is because of the
Correct.
Sullivan Show.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean,
right?
the day after they played, it was like everything was in color. You know, it changed everything.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to convey to somebody who wasn't there how vital and important they were. Because I remember the day, every day I saw a new Beatle album, the hair on my arms would stand up.
Yeah.
It was just like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
And I'm still pissy that it's up for debate, about Ringo's drumming. I'm like, he was, he was a master. And every person I talk to that has been playing 50 years or plus, it always goes back to who was your main influence? Ringo.
Yeah.
Who was your main influence? Ringo.
well, you got to consider too, back when they first hit in '64, being a drummer was being Buddy Rich,
Right.
or Gene Krupa, or
Right.
Louis Bellson, who was a soloist. Ringo was a band player,
Right.
and and then people all of a sudden in the studio who got into the pop field would say, play like Ringo, which they still do,
Yeah.
and so it worked.
Yeah.
But in those days, more was more. Busy drummers, the guys who could play the fastest were the best.
Mm-hmm.
Ringo played for the music.
He sure did. He wrote some really creative parts.
He sure did.
Yeah. I mean, I still teach 6 tuplets, basically 16th note triplets.
Yeah, and Ticket to
With-
Ride.
Well,
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride, and also Come Together.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, that intro.
Right, sure. Yeah, with a left-hand lead. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has single stroke 4 in it, I think, too. There's always rudiments. What's your favorite Beatles track?
Oh,
Do you have a
it
favorite?
depends on the day. I think their greatest two of the greatest singles I think were Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, Rain, and Paperback Writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think those. I mean, every time I hear them, I gotta stop the car and I've heard them a zillion times.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really all depends. It's saying, what's your favorite Beatle album? It's like,
Yeah, it's kind of
or
hard.
who's your
Yeah.
favorite drummer?
Yeah, exactly, right.
I don't know.
I don't know. I get that all the time, and I'm like, well, I can give you a top 10.
Yeah, or
maybe.
top 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to
absolutely.
say, and I always leave out somebody.
Yep.
I always love Dig a Pony.
Yeah.
That track.
Uh-huh.
Because it's got some 9/8 up in it. It's got some weird stuff
Yeah, it
going
was
on.
Lennon in his weird math phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did go through that.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
and it's
think-
weird because they didn't. I saw an interview with Ringo about "Here Comes the Sun," with a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1. Which is an Indian thing that George brought in.
Yeah.
And just as that was the only time I've ever heard him mention counting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like when I Dig a Pony, they were playing this and they didn't realize they were playing a bar of 9. It just that's the way
It
I
just
feel
happened
about it. It just
naturally.
happened naturally.
Yeah. As it should be when you're creative.
Yeah, they were fairly creative.
Slightly, you think? Yeah, that's what I think a lot of people don't get about Ringo. It wasn't about the technical aspect with him. It was about being creative, which is incredibly hard to do when you're a drummer. Writing creative parts, but he wrote great parts that fit the songs,
Yep.
And we're, as drummers, still playing them today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trying to play them as close as we can to Ringo's feel, which is the challenging thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't all metronomed back then, kids.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. And that's one of the unique things about him, as you well know, is he was a left-handed guy, but he played a right-handed set.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he went for a drum fill, he'd lead with his left hand.
Yeah.
And I recently saw Rain at KCA, the Beatle tribute band.
Yeah.
And their drummer did the same thing. He was brilliant. He
Cool.
was spot on.
Yeah.
Just great.
Have you ever been in a Beatles cover band or anything like that?
The closest I've gotten to sitting with a Rigby several times.
Cool.
And Mark Beyer is the keyboard player with Rain.
Yeah.
And he's the orchestrator, and just he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it's always another amazing thing too is the first time I got called to sub for Dwayne Smith, their drummer in the Rigbys. I was, I've been listening to the Beatles since I was 9, and I said, okay, look, I got to do a good job on this because they play things pretty much note for note.
Yeah.
So I started charting out all these songs. And then, I would get to you can't do that or whatever and go, I didn't realize he was playing a floor tom there.
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed that maraca part,
Yeah.
and you start noticing all these, once you put it under a microscope, you start noticing all these minuscule things that gave the track personality
Yeah.
that he was doing that you didn't know the first 50,000 times you heard it
Yeah.
until you start dissecting it.
Yeah.
And
or playing it. I mean,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that becomes like, oh, well, I get it now. Whoa.
You know what, too? I've been in several bands that tried to cover Beatles
Oh.
stuff, and it was incredibly hard.
Oh, there's nothing easy about that.
All You Need Is Love. I was in a band that tried to cover that. I mean, the vocal parts
Yeah.
overlapping, all the stuff going on,
Good
the
luck.
orchestration behind it.
Yep.
It's not easy stuff.
Yep.
But it still, like I said, it still blows my mind that he gets a hard way to go for
Yeah.
being a drummer, you know?
No, when I saw Rain, they did they were doing a lot of Pepper, and they did a version of She's Leaving Home that would just make you weep. It
Yeah.
was just so touching and perfect, and they had full production videos and everything. It was just top notch.
Yeah.
But
You said you just saw Paul McCartney?
I did. I took my daughters to see him at Rupp,
Wow, that's super cool. When was he here?
June 1st.
Okay. And how was that show?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Beatles? Or do you have a favorite Beatle?
It depends on the day. Yeah.
You know who mine is? I'm dead set in mine. Mine is George.
George?
I love George. I loved all his solo work after the Beatles.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's a big gnome fan, and I collect gnomes. And do you
all,
remember?
All Things Must Pass?
Yeah, and he's always standing in the field of gnomes and stuff like that. He was just a
Yeah.
cool dude. And
Yeah.
and his video for I Got My Mind Set on You is one of my all-time favorite videos.
Yeah, with a squirrel with a pipe.
Yeah, the squirrel in the pipe, and he's
Yeah.
got like skeletons behind him, and it's just him playing guitar in
Yeah.
a room of weird things.
Well, with
you
his
know?
connection with Monty Python, he was pretty much known for his sense of humor.
Yeah,
You know?
that's I think why I like him, because I'm a big comedy fan.
Yeah.
So anybody who's just kind of outside the box and crazy and funny,
Yeah.
that's kind of my thing.
That
yeah.
would be him.
Yeah, it makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
So set us up for this track that we're about to hear from Roscoe Gordon.
Okay, yeah, we're going back to Duke Robillard land. This is Duke's band. Roscoe was out of Memphis. He wrote the song Just a Little Bit, which is a big R&B hit. And this song is called Bad Dream. It's a shuffle.
All right, we gotta have shuffles, man, with
Gotta.
drummers in. Yeah.
Gotta.
I had somebody the other day listening to the show ask me what a shuffle was. And I said,
Uh-oh.
"Oh, you're listening." And I taught them. All right, we're in the studio at LRS102.com with Jeff McAllister.
I had a real bad dream last night. Ooh-wee, baby. I had a real bad dream last night. It started at 4 this morning, and it lasted till broad daylight. I tossed and I tumbled until the crack of dawn.
Yeah, I have yet to see the movie.
Oh,
I hate to out myself, but
man, yeah.
I rarely watch movies. I am more of an audio, definitely an audio or a music fan. I don't even have a TV.
Yeah, I very seldom watch TV.
Yeah. I haven't even owned a television in years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have cable. Don't care about it.
Nope, too expensive.
Rarely will go watch TV, go watch a movie. I'm just, I've never been that type of person, but I would probably watch The Queen. I love documentaries, so.
Well, that's very well done.
Yeah.
I mean, and apparently the Elton thing is really good, as well as that new Yesterday movie. which
Yeah,
I
now
haven't
those
seen yet.
I would love to see,
Yeah.
yeah. Who else were big influences you in the rock scene? Because you were a rock and roller, man.
Oh yeah, when I was 15, I had a poster on my wall that said Keith Moon is God.
I love that.
I got to see him play with the Who when we were stationed in Germany.
Wow.
And got to see Bonham with Zeppelin. And at that time, I was into progressive rock. I saw Bill Bruford in a clinic,
Yeah.
and but I saw Alan White with Yes, Genesis.
What about Deep Purple's drummer?
Ian Pace?
Pace?
Oh yeah. He did some recording with McCartney.
He did? I didn't
did.
know that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love him.
Some B-side rock and roll things he
Yeah.
did. He's quite the fireball. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
real good.
He's a rudiment guy, too. I mean, he's rudiments all throughout his playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bad boy.
Yeah.
No question.
I
about
forgot what I was... I saw something the other day that was like, all these different paradiddles and
that. Yeah.
patterns that he had used for things,
Yeah, he's held up well.
Yeah, he sure has.
Yeah,
And
he's
then,
doing very well.
yeah. So, is there any other great stories you got for us? You said you met George Thorogood. That's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. When I was with Duke, we opened up for him, and it's kind of interesting story. They wanted we did maybe 3 weeks with them, and then they were going to go up to Canada, and they wanted us to go with them, but the Canadian Music Union is a musicians union. There's a law that if you're an American band, you have to have a Canadian band opening up for you.
That's interesting. Is that
Yeah.
still in effect?
To my knowledge, which makes perfect sense to me. That's a sign of a strong union in my book.
Yeah, it is.
There was the one thing I was telling you about playing with people like Lonnie, who were pioneers and looked up to. I mean, I got to meet Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I met Don Henley because Lonnie's old drummer used to play with Don Henley on his first solo album, or his first solo tour. A ton of Albert King,
That's
Albert
rad.
Collins, John Mayall, John Hammond. I recorded with him. And we're talking about Hard Knocks and Dirty Socks, and another great thing about the blues is you see a lot of the world. I played in every state except Alaska and Hawaii, but I've landed there, and been to Australia twice, all over Europe.
Playing the blues, you mean?
Yeah, Turkey, Greece.
Wow, how was that? Turkey and Greece.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. In Australia, oh man, I went there with Duke and with Lonnie, and it was probably my favorite place. That and Norway. Norway's a biggie too.
Norway. I need that on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Norway's a pretty serious country, but Australia, on top of the people being really nice, 1 minute it looks like Appalachia, the next minute it looks like the Caribbean, and they know something about beer over there, and the women are great, and it's just one of those things. I recall because my passport was used up. It was every page was stamped or had a visa on it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only ever gotten to play Canada.
So
outside of the United States.
Yep, been up there plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Calgary, Edmonton, Alberta,
Calgary,
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, Calgary's the
Manitoba.
Canadian rodeo capital.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is,
Even
yeah.
their stadium looks like a saddle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we played. I forget what it was called. It was a blues joint there though for like 3 or 4 nights.
Was it King Eddie?
It might have been.
Yeah.
It was this little joint, but it was
Dumpy?
really cool. It was dumpy. It was
Yeah.
like a dive bar.
Yeah.
But one of my favorites was Blues on White, and I think that was in Edmonton, if I'm not mistaken. But it's called Blues on White, and we were there for like 10 days, and we just slept upstairs above the venue, and you literally just went downstairs. And Blues on White Street, just WHYTE, was like our Bardstown Road. And one thing I realized up there is that the kids love blues there. I mean, if you could get into a bar, and I forget what their age was, but if you could get into a bar, the kids 18 and up would be at every blues show.
Well, if Canada, there probably had to be 6 years old to drink beer.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably so.
But I had never seen snow that much, and and it wasn't snowing, but I mean, there were 28-inch plus snow mounds there.
Yep.
Yeah, and it did look like you could just reach and touch the sky. It seemed like something in Canada is just closer to the sky.
That's
you
true.
know what I mean?
That's true.
But it was gorgeous,
Yep.
and I do remember, there's always that crossing the border thing.
Oh, that's always fun, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They wouldn't let us in North Dakota because it was too late. Like, we didn't get there in time. So instead, we had to drive all the way through Montana and then up and go a different route. And, there is border security always interesting.
That's diplomatically put. We had some really difficult times at the going in and out of Canada.
Yeah. And you talked about, it seems like it's all, glory life when you're on the road.
No.
But it's the complete opposite.
No, you have on your days off, you're trying to find a laundromat.
Yep.
I remember we did a promotional tour for one of Duke's albums, and we went to England for a week, and we just went for per diem. And the first night I had to do laundry in London, and I spent all my per diem on laundry. It just was so irritating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but I mean, it's. Another thing too that got me about that is you finish a gig, and you drive, and get to the next gig just in time to play.
Yep. And as a drummer,
yeah,
you're exhausted, man.
Yeah,
it's a physical
Last
job.
time I was out with Duke, we did a Friday in Detroit, and we did a Sunday in Boulder, Colorado, in a van. And that was tough.
Yeah. I remember just from my, short experience of touring, we drove for 50 hours straight one day, and we were in like this Dodge Sprinter thing that we just had a postal service guy come up to the window. We broadcast live on Broadway, and we've got the big window so you can walk up and see us broadcasting. He came up and gave us a peace sign, and hey, if you're listening. Anyway, but we drove 50 hours, and we were in a Dodge Sprinter, and it had a bed in it.
Yep.
And there were three of us. We were a three-piece. So we took turns. Like, one would drive while the other one was sleeping. And I was always on third shift driving because I like to drive at night. And my eyes were the best out of the group.
Right.
And, after you play drums, you're exhausted, but you're also, like, pumped full of energy. It's like you just went and ran a marathon.
That's right.
So they would go to sleep right after the gig, and then I'd be up, driving all night. And I remember there were several times where I wasn't for sure if I should go lock myself in a bus. I was in fear of my life up in those little North Dakota and South Dakota joints, and all through Iowa. Iowa, though, man, I met these great, awesome hippies in Pomeroy, Iowa. We pull up to this little place, and it looked like, smaller than my hometown. It was a building. And I'm like, where are we playing? And they open up the doors, and it's all these hippies that used to follow the Grateful Dead and do all their tie-dyeing.
Oh, man.
And everything's tie-dyed. And then by the time we played, there were hundreds of people that showed up to this gig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was the coolest experience ever. So, I got to meet all kinds of awesome people, but also there was some times where I was like, they were like, hey, we got a band house for you. And I don't know if you know that joke, but anytime they say we've got a band house for you, it's probably not somewhere you want to stay.
No.
That's what I learned.
Yeah. Leaves
Yeah.
a lot to be desired.
Yeah. And one time they took me, they're like, hey, we're going to, me and Freakbase still laugh about this. We're going to take you back to your bedroom. And it was literally like up on cinder blocks, like plywood on cinder blocks with like a sheet laying on top of it.
Nice,
We're
nice.
like, yeah, we'll be back later. And then we'd just like bolt to the next city after that and be like, yeah, we're not staying there. It's creepy. Yeah.
I played at a place called Wahlbeek, Iowa, that they advertised as the center of the universe. And it was this old house. And this old hippie used to run it named Billy. I remember him very well. And I played there 2 or 3 times. Wahlbeek. Yeah.
Is it close to any major city?
I don't know.
Yeah. I did get to play Iowa State University. That was a cool gig.
There you go.
And I think, who was it? Oh, I can't think of the band's name right now. Grace Slick, Jefferson Airplane, but now they're
Starship.
Yeah, had played there the night before,
Mm-hmm.
and the sound guys were telling me it's like in their contract clause that they will not play "We Built This City" anymore. Like
Oh.
they refuse to play it nowadays.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't blame them either. I know that kind of was it's the jump the shark moment for the band.
Yeah,
you know, we're like,
that
"Eh."
wasn't a real good move on their part. I don't
No, but it was a huge hit for them. Yeah.
Gigantic. Yeah.
I mean, I remember that. It's crazy. So, you got any other great like touring stories or
None
disasters? What's the biggest disaster you've had on, or like, have you had a
gosh.
crazy gig where things just did not go right?
Oh my gosh, you're tricking me on this question.
What about you ever had anybody cuss out the band while they're playing? Something like that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Sure. I remember.
I think we all have to go through that at some point.
Yeah, just locally, I remember once I was playing at Gerstl's.
Yeah.
And with this band that was just awful. I'm not going to mention their name. This
Mm-hmm.
is years ago. And as you know, there's a if you're playing on the stage, there's a window that faces the street
Mm-hmm.
to your right. And there wasn't very crowded, and this band was just trudging on and trudging on. This lady came out of the club, stopped in front of the window, and flipped us the bird. So apparently we really offended her somehow.
Oh man, wonder what you did to her.
I don't know, but like I said, the band left a lot to be desired, so maybe that was the thing that pushed her over the edge.
Yeah. You know, when you're in a band, I mean, you know more than anybody. It's like you're in a relationship with 4 or 5 other people.
Oh, of course.
You know, or how many's in the Monarchs?
70.
7?
No, I think.
I know, pretty much. I was gonna
8.
say it's
I think there's 8.
There's
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah, they've been together since '61.
I know they have literally. I remember them from being a kid, hearing
yeah.
about them, and
Yeah.
you know, and everybody talking about them, and they're still playing. It blows my mind that you're with them, man.
Yeah, but they're still going strong. It's,
Yeah.
Thank goodness, it's turned out to be a really good gig.
Yeah.
2 original members, Leon and Dusty, are
Yeah.
there. And
Man, they represent, you know, Louisville and the state, and I mean, they've played everywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
they've been through it all.
yeah, and like I said, I mean, I miss the club days with those guys, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
But it just mostly corporate events or private affairs and things like that. But we're not working much, maybe 35 gigs a year.
Yeah.
But,
That's still a good little
by
chunk.
Louisville standards, it's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think about today's venues? I mean, they just go. You know, nowadays we're having to compete with karaoke and
Yeah.
DJs, and
Right.
people don't want to pay the bands, and
Nope.
You
No,
know.
it hasn't gotten any easier, has it?
no, I mean, from my experience, no.
And then there's always bands that want to undercut you so they could play,
Right.
and the clubs are going to go for that.
Right.
And it's not a real healthy state from what I've seen compared to what it was back in the early 80s.
Right.
Back when Main Street was jumping and you could play 7 days a week if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
And we had Jim Porter's, we had Phoenix Hill, we had all these venues that are
City
now
Lights,
completely gone under.
Soundstage,
Toy Tiger.
Tiger,
Yeah.
Zanzibar, and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah. And I kudos to anybody who's got a venue open, you know, and pays a band these
Yeah.
days. That's why I like to get away from the bar scene a little bit and go more with the corporate events, the festivals, the
Yep.
you know, stuff like that, kid-friendly venues.
Yep.
And I myself just went through a big change where, you know, I don't want to play with a lot of people who are drinking anymore, and you know, just I want to play with the best players I can
Sure.
who are so of sober mind, and you know what I mean.
Well, when you play, that's the thing that with Duke and Lonnie, that really I really appreciate is I surrounded myself in players that were much better than I, and you learn so much more. I mean, Marty Ballou, the bass player, with those couple tracks that I play with Lonnie, with Duke that I play for you. I saw him. We had kind of a pseudo reunion last April. And he has just blossomed into this most amazing musician. And he was amazing back then, but he's so disciplined. And he's very well known in the Boston, Providence, New York area,
Yeah.
Connecticut. Just a tremendous player. And I mean, back when Duke, when I joined Duke, it was back in the day where you could start in San Diego, work your way up to British Columbia, and work 6 nights a week. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Clubs just aren't around.
Right.
Or we would start in Toronto and end up in Calgary,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or start in Florida and end up in North Dakota. I mean, and just work. I think The first year I was with Duke, we did 194 one-nighters in 220 days.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
But that's probably how you got really strong too, right?
The band got tight real quick, and like I said, my payoff was getting to play with these two other guys that were light years ahead of me, talent-wise. And I just tried to absorb as much as that as I possibly could. I was really fortunate,
Yeah.
you know, at having that opportunity.
Yeah, that's why I always too love to pick people who I haven't played with a lot. And I also had that semi opportunity, not touring like you did, but I mean, when I was young, you know, I got to play with guys who were in their 30s.
Yep.
And I was just like 14, 15 years old.
That's heavy.
It was heavy.
Yeah.
And I always try to, you know, I love to play with people who are much better than me because they do make you better players.
Absolutely.
And it's always nice when someone of that, you know, of that stature will grab somebody young and pull them in and be like, hey, let me help you.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
Lonnie did that with me. I mean, Lonnie and Dumpy, they've been playing together since 1958.
Yeah.
On breaks, they used to go out and drag.
That's crazy.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's rock and roll.
Yeah, it is.
Back in these little clubs in Ohio.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Lonnie has some stories. Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, I would have loved to have had that interview
Yeah.
when he was alive. Yeah.
Yeah, he was an extraordinary man.
Yeah. And he was based out of Cincinnati, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
King's Records and all that.
Yeah. And Dumpy was out of Hamilton, Ohio, which is right up there by, you know, the airport, tri-state area.
Yeah.
And like I said, Dumpy was just this unbelievable piano player.
Yeah, what a cool name too, Dumpy.
Dumpy, yeah,
that's
his
a great
real name was Denzel. But his mom made, when he was a baby, still on a diaper, she said something like, "Here, just take this dump, would you?" And,
Yeah.
and Dumpy stuck with him.
That's wild, man.
And he had this old, remember those old CP70 Yamaha pianos with a harp on them that weighed about 1 billion pounds?
Yeah.
He had one of those, and it was so worn out, the low end was just percussive.
Yeah.
And he was probably one of the best honky-tonk piano players I've ever heard. He wrote honky-tonk blues.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm just a bartender.
Yeah.
And he was a big George Jones fan. And so was Lonnie. Those guys turned me on to George Jones.
I love me some George Jones.
Yeah, I got to meet him. And
Really?
He was a really humble guy.
You know, Dave Moody called in the other day. He was playing George Jones's venue there.
Oh.
Evidently, he's got a big venue down in Nashville.
There's nobody like George. He
Yeah.
just, man, his twang. I mean, that's the stuff.
Yeah. And of course, you got to love the stories of George Jones because,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
he
the
liked to drink
oh,
a lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who drinks enough to ride a lawnmower down the
liquor
middle
store.
of yeah, down to the liquor store to pick up. Yeah.
He's my man.
Yeah, I know. No kidding, right? He makes me feel completely sane.
Yeah, I met him. We were doing a festival in Wheeling, West Virginia, and George went on before Hank, and I happened to know one of his managers. I said, "Is there any way I could shake his hand?" And he said, "Be standing here when he gets off. I'll take care of it." And sure enough, and we just talked briefly, and I think what he said to me, I said, hey George, how you doing? I'm Hank Jr.'s drummer, and he laughed and he said, "You tell your boss to go to hell."
Did they get along, Hank and
Yeah,
George?
oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
they got
were
along
friends.
fine. Yeah, they were friends.
Yeah, I
But,
guess you have to if you're in Nashville, man. You know, another thing I've realized about Nashville is, and they're totally different from our scene here in Louisville, is that, man, they don't, you know, everybody goes to Nashville to try to make it.
Yeah.
So everybody's just playing for free.
Yeah, oh
You
yeah,
know,
oh
it's
yeah.
rare to find a paying gig down there unless you get on with a big artist like that.
Man, I met Bobby Keys,
Yeah.
the sax
Oh, yeah.
player that was out with the Stones for
Yeah.
so long, and he was playing with a guy named Doug Cook in this little tiny bar in Nashville called
Yeah.
the Grapevine, working for the Door and Free White Russians.
Isn't that well? You know, I got to play with Bobby Keys in Nashville.
Did you?
I did at the Mercy Lounge
Oh,
with
cool.
Paul Culligan, and it was a lot of the Roostars cats like
Yeah.
Andy Brown and
Yeah.
Charlie Bach
Andy.
was on bass.
Andy's
and,
a great guy.
Oh
like
man, I
Andy.
love Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They called me in to play that because they needed a conga player. They needed background percussion because we were doing all this Stone stuff.
Yeah.
And everything he played on, including Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and some tracks of Lennon, John Lennon,
Yeah,
whatever gets you
Plastic
through the
Ono
night.
Band. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's a funny story. I don't know if I want to tell it on air, but I will say that green room was probably the craziest experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, he still had like 80-year-old groupies, you
Yeah.
know, everywhere. And Chris Robinson of the Black Crows
Yeah.
was opening up for us. And Bobby, man, this was right before his death. It was only about 5 years before his death. But when, man, he could still blow that sax. But when he did, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. His face would get so big.
Yeah.
And it would be, it would be so red. He wouldn't miss a note. But, talk about fun experiences with cussing out bands and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He'd turn around and cuss everybody. You know what? In the middle of the song, too. And I was just like, I was really nervous, you know.
Yeah.
But when we went behind the scenes back into the green room, he'd light into everybody, but he would look at me and be like, but I love you. Which made me very nervous because all these guys had hired me on just to be a backing percussionist. I wasn't really in his band, you know what I mean? So that was an interesting experience, but I did have him autograph my set list and my notes that I made that night, and he wrote real big, I love you, Jyn Yates, Bobby Keys.
Oh, sweet.
And I framed it and put it in my studio.
I had a difficult, not a difficult experience, but I spent a little too much time with Bobby on a break down there.
Yeah.
And ended up in the fetal position in the back of Greg Forsman's car.
Yeah.
And
fetal position from
from that.
Yeah.
And I remember another thing too, which was a real honor, is I got to meet Levon Helm.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you'd ever met him from the band.
Yes, he was playing at Stevie Ray's.
Wow.
With his band, and his daughter was singing, and I had his book, this Wheels on Fire, about the band that he wrote, and I asked his daughter, whose name was Amy, if memory serves, would your dad mind signing this book? And she said, oh, no, of course not. And he was out in the back of Stevie's in the Voodoo Garden doing kind of a little meet and greet.
Yeah.
And
you're talking about here in Louisville?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at Stevie's.
I was like, I've been in that Voodoo Garden many a times. Yeah.
And there was two people in front of me, I think, and I was just waiting there patiently. And when I was watching his first set, because of his throat cancer problem, I was going, is he smoking or not? And he wasn't smoking. I was going, good for him. But on his break, just before I got to him, his road manager handed him a cigarette. And I went, okay, he's been a chain smoker. He could smoke a cigarette on break, whatever. And I said, hey, and he was friends with Lonnie.
Yeah.
And I said, Levon, my name's Jeff. I used to play with Lonnie Mack. He goes, oh, Lonnie's a great guy. Oh, man, yeah. And he lit a cigarette and he handed it to me, and it was a joint. And that MasterCard commercial, $30 to see one of your favorite drummers, $25 bar tab, smoking a joint, your favorite, priceless.
Priceless story for life.
And I don't smoke.
Yeah.
And I just went, well, sure.
Yeah, well,
and
I mean, it's Levon Helm offering you a joint.
Levon Helm.
You
Come
take
on.
it, right?
Yeah, and so he said, Jeff, stick around for the second set. We're gonna play some different stuff. And I'm like, okay. And about 2 songs into it, my face started melting.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like,
so you actually did take a puff?
One puff.
Oh, one puff.
And it just, I had to go. It was just
How
like,
long ago was this?
Maybe 10 years.
10 years.
But he
wow.
signed my book. Never let him get you down.
I love that.
Yeah.
Man, what a great story. And you know what? It was worth it, you taking that one hit just to tell that story right now on LRS. You know what I mean? Because I completely appreciate it. He's one of my favorites. And, to sing and to play drums, a whole different world.
Oh, man, he was
whole
so good.
different world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Levon, they broke the mold.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, it's been awesome having you in. We're almost out of time.
Hey, thanks for the invite, Jyn.
Absolutely. Again, you're one of my all-time favorite drummers, and thanks. Every time I see you, you're always playing. You're just innovative. You know what I mean? And
thank you.
I love that you teach, and and there's always, like you said, there's always something to learn from other drummers, and I love to surround myself with the greats because. Everybody from you to Jeff Jarboe to Marvin to Dave Williams, all of them, teach me something at some point.
I learned stuff from everybody, and that's including you. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Is there any gigs you got coming up you want to talk about before we sign off?
I'm just trying to work. I'll cut your lawn.
That's most drummers.
And anything you got, laundry, that's fine. That's fine.
That's amazing. That's amazing. No kidding. We do have to do quite a few things to keep it rocking, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
The stuff I do for money sometimes, I'm like,
keep it floating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean like, sex work or anything crazy.
Got it. Oh, the rumor's out.
Yeah, the rumor's out now. Laundry, though, I'll do. I'll do your laundry. I'll fold really nice and, mow your yard and dig your plants up and all that fun stuff. Anyway, but you said you're going to be playing Gerstels coming up, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting with a band called Speed Limit Friday.
Cool. Speed Limit Friday,
Yeah.
Gerstels, what time?
I think it's 9 to 12, and I'm get the pleasure of playing with Bob Ramsey and Jimmy Brown.
Oh, God.
So, yeah.
Two of the greats.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
And I told you I'm coming for Jimmy Brown.
Yeah.
I'm gonna land him for gig soon.
Yep.
Hopefully, if Jimmy, if you're listening, I hope you are. I'm coming for you. So Jeff McAllister, so great to have you in.
Thanks, Jen.
If you want to take lessons, hit up Jeff at Mel Owen Music.
Yep.
You're there what, Monday through Friday? Or?
No, I'm there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
Yep.
Check him out at Gerstels on Friday, and
Yep.
I'm sure you probably have more Monarch gigs coming up.
Yeah, I got about 10 gigs this month.
Cool.
Yep.
10 gigs this month. If you catch the Monarchs, go check them out, man. They've been around since the 60s.
Yep.
And still rocking it. And I really appreciate you coming in. It's been a great interview today. And as always, keep supporting LRS102.com, The Walrus, for bringing it back. And thanks for
Yeah.
being on Jyneration Nation,
My
man.
pleasure. Thanks, Jen.
I'm going to leave you with some Clash. It's I Fought the Law. Stay groovy, man. I'll see you tomorrow.